And you know what Trump meetings are like. He's electric.
Hey, some of the words that were used, you heard Andrew, meandering, all over the map, doesn't know what he's talking about, could not keep a straight thought.
So there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted?
I mean, it seemed like there had been a trend of our American oligarchs getting behind Donald Trump because he likes to make a deal and everything's transactional and quid pro quo. But to get in a room with him and to listen to him speak is to see how deranged and outlandish his speculations are right now, in addition to everything else that he, stands for.
After it was reported last week that the man seen rambling about shark attacks and cancer-inducing wind turbines didn't leave a room full of CEOs excited about the possibility of him becoming president again. Reactions, as expected, poured in from across the media landscape.
Reportedly baffled by the former president's incoherence during the private meeting.
There were sighs of despair heard on Morning Joe.
And the meeting was asked about why he had chosen 20%. And he said, well, it's a round number. Had a number of CEOs shaking their head, given that 1% of the total tax burden on the country is actually a huge number in terms of what is needed to support the revenue for this country.
And a note of surprise from the very man tasked with reporting on the feedback from CEOs, Andrew Sorkin.
I will say I was surprised. I spoke to a number of CEOs who I would say walked into the meeting being Trump supporter-ish or thinking that they might be leaning that direction, who said that he was remarkably meandering, could not keep a straight thought, was all over the map. And that they, which may be not surprising, but was interesting to me because these were people who I think might have been actually predisposed to him and actually walked out of the room less predisposed to him, actually predisposed to thinking this is not necessarily, as one person said, this may not be any different or better than a Biden thought if you're thinking that way.
Which, as I said last week, are we thinking of the same sociopath turned convicted felon? Because him leaving a room in disarray is about as surprising as this being the crowd that he drew at an all-black church.
Andrew, more takeaways from Trump's meeting with business leaders. What was the reception like?
Well, it was interesting. I spoke to a number of the CEOs who were at that meeting yesterday, a number of whom, frankly, had been predisposed to President Trump, in fact, former President Trump. And they walked away from that meeting, I think, a bit disheartened, a bit questioning, I don't want to say his mental fitness, but questioning just how meandering, how in some cases one said to me, he could not keep a thought straight. He would go in one direction and then he'd go in another direction.
And it must be because of MIT, my relationship to MIT. Very smart. He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark.
Right.
But I wanted to highlight some masterful commentary from, as we come to expect these days from him, none other than Maryland Democrat Jamie Raskin. He appeared on Jen Psaki's show over the weekend in which the subject matter of Trump's mental acuity was touched on, where Raskin cited his most recent rallies as a clear indicator that he can't seem to string together a cohesive thought, but also how Trump and his family consistently view the high office as a money-making scheme.
Okay, now keep in mind, Trump has promised to cut the corporate tax rate. CEOs like corporate tax cuts, and they have looked the other way many times before because of those tax cuts. But it sounds like they're having a harder time seeing past his unhinged behavior, and that does say something. And for his part, Trump isn't exactly doing anything to reassure people about his own cognitive abilities. Just last night, Trump forgot that his own former doctor's name is actually Ronnie Jackson.
I think he should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test and I aced it. Doc Ronnie Johnson. Does everyone know Ronnie Johnson?
Congressman, I just wanted to ask you about the CEOs, because Andrew Ross Sorkin, who does an extensive amount of reporting, these CEOs have looked the other way frequently when it comes to Trump's behavior because of tax cuts and other things like that. It seems to me it's like something that they are concerned about his unhinged behavior. I mean, what did you make of that reporting?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like there had been a trend of our American oligarchs getting behind Donald Trump because he likes to make a deal and everything's transactional and quid pro quo. But to get in a room with him and to listen to him speak is to see how deranged and outlandish his speculations are right now, in addition to everything else that he, stands for. I mean, for him, government is just a money-making opportunity for him and his family, and he converted the presidency into an instrument of private self-enrichment. And that is dramatically opposed to what Joe Biden's all about. The government has got to be an instrument for the common good and the public interest for everybody. So the stakes are very clear in the election.
Now, for those who follow Jamie Raskin's political trajectory, they know that this is something he's discussed at length before, especially in the wake of Republicans all of a sudden outraged at the idea of a president's family member leveraging their name to get ahead in a business sense. This is me staring in Jared Kushner.
Chair now recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. I would move pursuant to Clause 2K6 of Rule 11 that the committee issue a subpoena to Jared Kushner to compel testimony related to the $2 billion collected from Saudi Arabia after his service within the White House.
Second.
Raskin brought Trump's business transactions to the floor on several occasions to highlight the sheer irony of his colleagues outraged over a loan between brothers. Meanwhile, their very cult leader leveraged his position for financial gain.
Foreign influence on a president is clearly a serious threat. And the evidence is clear, as our ranking member mentioned. We have actually evidence that China funneled cash to Donald Trump through his businesses while he was president. That is illegal and it threatens national security. The Trump International Hotel, more stays at the hotel in Vegas, Trump Tower, over $5.5 million. The People's Republic of China, including state-owned enterprises, made unconstitutional payments in excess of 5.5 to the Trump Organization. And those millions into Donald Trump's pockets are just a small sample of the total payments we received. And as a reminder, our chairman actually cut off the investigation into Trump's business activities. So we only have documentation for about 2 years. Now, just months ago, the Republicans blocked my motion to subpoena Donald Trump's accountants for their records on this cover-up, which is an absolute crime. And in 2016, Trump said, "I love China. The biggest bank in the world is from China." The Department of Justice found that that same bank was being used as a front to funnel money into North Korea. I also want to talk about, it's not just about China, of course. We can document illegal money going into Trump's businesses while he was president from multiple companies, from multiple countries.
And this is indicative of a Trump presidency, right? Leveraging everything and anything for personal gain. Raskin also discussed the Supreme Court, in which Trump stacked, as we know, and is basically acting as an extended arm of his contingent. And in a more dangerous sense, will be an extended arm of his presidency if he's to get back in office.
Has not been as critical at every moment at the Supreme Court. He has been more of late, but he basically said it's never been more out of kilter than it is today. I mean, do you agree with that?
Well, it's just operating like an arm of the Republican Party, which is now completely under the thumb of Donald Trump. And so if Trump thinks it's politically advantageous to make an alliance with the National Rifle Association, the Supreme Court's going to do it. We saw it in the bump stock opinion, which basically overthrew the wisdom of the ATF. The executive branch of government, even when Trump was there and president, and said, "Oh no, a bump stock added to a semi-automatic weapon cannot be treated as a machine gun because that's the NRA line." Now we're going to go back and try to make this happen legislatively. That Vegas massacre took the lives of 58 people. There are 500 people wounded and still suffering from that day. I can't imagine what it's like for them to be watching this on TV with the Supreme Court making a mockery out of that experience.
We've seen a clear conflict of interest, not only with Justice Alito's partisan views on record and choice of flags, but his opinion on Trump's immunity claims, which, with the context of his wife's nod to January 6 insurrectionists, is problematic to say the least.
To the Dobbs leak, where did that go?
Yeah, what happened to the Dobbs leak? It was a thing, and then it just poof.
Funny you should ask. I mean, they mobilized this huge investigation. I think they talked to more than 100 witnesses. Chief Justice Roberts said they're going to get to the bottom of it. Somebody leaked a Supreme Court opinion. And then, predictably, they went radio silent. The cat's got their tongue. You think it might have something to do with Justice Alito, who's proven himself to be a completely political actor here and in bed with all these right-wing forces? Could it have something to do perhaps with Justice Thomas? We don't know, but all we know is they have dropped it. We haven't heard anything about the leak of the Dobbs opinion. And does that sound like Sotomayor or Kagan to you? No, I don't think so.
About as problematic as a sitting Supreme Court justice accepting millions in gifts. That's none of my business, right? Well, thank God Jamie Raskin is on hand to speak on the matter.
Congress has a ban on outside employment. And as AOC was saying, we have a $50 gift ban. So none of us goes anywhere near doing that.
Oh, you don't do $500,000 vacations?
Well, I mean, that's the comical thing. I mean, members of Congress don't even understand that. Under what circumstances would a Supreme Court justice be accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in foreign travel or paid tuition for family members or a recreational vehicle, motor stagecoach? It's just outlandish for us to contemplate. I mean, that's like a jailable offense for people over here. And it's just like the normal business as usual at the Supreme Court that they're collecting millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars from their so-called friends. And so we need to clean that up. And that's why, we said we're going to start with something simple that the whole country will be able to understand immediately and intuitively. We want a $50 gift ban for U.S. Supreme Court justices. They make $300,000 a year, pay for your own lunch, and pay for your own vacation.
Enough! Send him to the big house, not the White House. Get the new exclusive tees, mugs, and stickers right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.